Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I am Barb Marshall. My husband Doug and I have been attending Epiphany for about 10 years now, and I'm grateful to be here with you this morning. A few weeks ago, Dwight called and asked if I would be willing to give the sermon today during our annual appeal. You know, I have to wonder if it isn't God who loves us, but Dwight who has the plan for our life. Some of you, I think, can relate. Honestly, though, I'm glad he asked. I'm happy to be giving this sermon today because I love Epiphany. I love Epiphany because of the important impact it has in my life and in our city and in God's kingdom. Last week in his sermon, Dwight talked about the value of Epiphany based on tangible things. Things like our buildings, our finances, our staff, the ministries and the programs we run, and the people who are served. In doing so, I think he made a strong case for our parish. Today, I'd like to follow that up by considering the value of Epiphany based on intangibles, of things like connection and hope and lives transformed, and how it is the tangible things that make these intangibles possible. For instance, when I come to Epiphany, I experience deep connection. It is here in this physical space that I find I am connected to the divine, I am connected to you, and I discover I am connected to the church down through the ages. I love knowing that the creeds we say each week, the sacrament we partake in, those can be traced back to the earliest days of the church. I confess, if asked my opinion when Christianity got its start, I might have cautioned against entrusting it to people, to men and women like you and me. And yet, for more than 2 centuries, the church is still standing, and because it does, the gospel continues to flourish. The church has endured because it is made up of people like you and me, men and women who have sacrificed and invested over time to make it so. Here at Epiphany, I think about all those who came before us, those who over 100 years ago laid the foundation, and those since who've invested in this place so that we might be worshiping here today. You know, there are some weeks that I look out at the pews, and maybe you can too. I remember the faces of those who are no longer with us. I can actually picture Ann Muldrum sitting right there in the front pew, and I can envision Bob Barnes serving up at the altar. There are, of course, countless others whose names and faces I never knew. But I realize I'm here because of all those who came before me, who invested in this place over time, and I'm grateful for that. And it gives me pause. It causes me to think about what has been entrusted to us, to consider what our part might be to ensure that those who follow us have a place where they too can gather and worship in the years to come. Our connection to this long river of worship, those who came before and those who will follow, is valuable. But so too is being connected to one another right here, right now. Honestly, I can't think of many places I'm able to be in as wonderfully and uncurated community as this. I love that at Epiphany, there are no barriers to belonging. As a result, I've had the opportunity to meet with and to connect with a variety of people whose age and gender, race and sexual orientation, economic status, and political persuasions are different from mine. And I have been enriched because of it. I see how rare and important that is in our world today. And I'm grateful that connection exists at Epiphany, where relationship truly is primary. Perhaps most importantly, I experience a connection to the divine by being part of this community. Joining my voice in the liturgy, participating in the sacraments, engaging in prayer, and seeing Christ in you, I have experienced a connection with the God who made me, with the God who loves me. It is this tangible place, these pews, this sacred space that allows me each week to experience those connections. Connection matters, but so too does hope. Hope is another intangible made evident because of a place like Epiphany. We've heard it said that the neighborhood church is the hope of the world. I think it's true. For when the church is at its best, when the church lives into its mission as the church was intended, and I believe that describes Epiphany, then it can't help but bring hope to the world. Turns out I need that hope too. I can become anxious and even at times afraid because of how quickly our world is changing, and frankly, simply by opening up the newspaper and reading headlines. But when I gather here in this place with you and participate in worship, I am reminded that the bad thing is never the last thing. Here I encounter truth based on sound doctrine, not on myth, as we just heard read in our lesson. And that encounter with truth brings me hope, for it is here I remember that I belong to a God who is eternal, who is present with us, to a God who loves us, who really, really loves us. That reminder allows me to let go of the fear and the anxiety for even just a little while, enabling me to take a deep breath. And I hope it does that for you too. I think about the many tangibles here at Epiphany that bring hope to our broader community. Last spring, I had the opportunity to facilitate a table at Relata. The table was made up of 8 people, mostly new to one another, with several from outside our parish. I was struck by how vulnerable the sharing was as we each told our stories. One individual shared with me how unique and meaningful the experience had been for her. She said it gave her hope at a time when she desperately needed it. There is a long list of things at Epiphany that bring hope to others. I think about our music, how it lifts the spirits of those who hear it. I think about tiny homes built, meals served, backpacks delivered. But mostly, I think about you. I think about the impact each of us has in bringing hope to the world because of the lives we live. Lives that, although not perfect, try to reflect the divine we encounter here at Epiphany. It is this tangible place that makes that hope realized. Finally, it is the gift of transformed lives made possible because of a place like this. Epiphany has been called a spiritual gym, and I have experienced it to be just that. A place where I can exercise my faith and find it deepened and broadened. I mentioned that Doug and I have been attending for about 10 years. It was the bells that first brought us through the doors. We had recently returned to Seattle and bought a home just a few blocks away. We're able to hear the bells from that house, and that hourly reminder that there was a church nearby initially ignited our curiosity. It was the bells that first drew us here, but it was the beauty we encountered when we walked through the grounds and entered the chapel that caused us to return. The architecture of this space, the beauty of its interiors from woodwork to stained glass really captured our attention. And then there was the music and the liturgy that further fed our souls. But most of all, it was the people we encountered that made us feel like we'd found a home here. In the 10 years we've been attending Epiphany, my faith has been nurtured and strengthened. I have been changed by this place, by its beauty, by its liturgy and by the many opportunities I've had to learn, whether by going on a pilgrimage, participating in worship, or learning through things like Education for Ministry. There have been opportunities to serve as well. It has been a joy to serve as a Eucharistic minister, to be on the vestry, and to help lead the catechumenate class. All opportunities that have continued to stretch and strengthen my faith. But among the more transforming aspects for me at Epiphany has been my relationship with you, those of you who attend this parish and whom I've come to know over the course of my time here. I look out and I see people I've come to care deeply for and who have made me feel deeply cared for in return. Many of you model for me what it looks like to be a follower of Christ through your actions and your attitudes and your fidelity to this place and to one another. All of this has changed me, and for the better. And I know I'm not alone. Epiphany is a place where that happens over and over again, where lives are changed as we each begin to resemble more and more the Christ we follow. Which all brings me to the appeal part of this sermon. There is value in a place like Epiphany, and each of us has a role to ensure that that continues to be so. Those intangibles I just spoke of, connection, hope, transformation, they are made possible because of the tangible things at Epiphany. Things like lights and plumbing and salaries, which all depend on our financial support. Every fall, we launch the annual appeal. If you've been around a while, this doesn't come as a surprise. But you may not know that there's a practical reason for the timing and the importance of receiving pledges just now. You see, each year, just before the end of the year, your vestry approves a budget for the following calendar year. I think you'd be relieved to know that vestry won't approve a budget that can't be supported by pledges. As a result, it is essential to know what will be pledged by each person who comes to Epiphany. There is no barrier to belonging at Epiphany, and there is no barrier to pledging either. Everyone is invited to participate. Whether you are someone who shows up all the time, giving in generous ways, perhaps someone who participates by watching online, or maybe just someone who can come occasionally, everyone has a place at Epiphany. Whatever your engagement, I would encourage you to consider a pledge for the coming year, one that puts weight down on the value of a church like ours. I wonder, what would it mean for us to be generous with our pledge? Like really, really generous. The Apostle Paul encouraged us to give not grudgingly or out of necessity, but as one who purposes in their heart. Doug and I have been prayerfully considering in our hearts what our generous pledge to Epiphany will be for this next year, and I hope you will too. If you're like me, you're being asked right now to give to many, many other organizations that do worthwhile things. It can be a challenge to know where to give our resources. But I want to ask us all to consider putting Epiphany near the top of our list because of the important role it plays in our life, in our city, and in God's kingdom. I believe it is unique among the many things we give to because of its present and eternal impact. Last week, Dwight began his sermon with the value proposition of Epiphany, and he ended it with these three questions. What would our region be like without Epiphany? What would our city be like without Epiphany? And what would we be like without Epiphany? For me, the answer to all three is the same. I believe we'd be a place and we would be people who have a little less hope, who are less connected and less changed for the better. I'm really glad we heard those bells, which brought me to Epiphany all those years ago. And I'm glad I still hear them, because they are a tangible reminder to me that here is a place where hope can be found, where relationship matters, and where transformation is possible. By your giving, may Epiphany continue to be a place where that is so.